Hello students. Today we will discuss about a famous story of R.K. Narayan, an astrologer's day. First of all, we will discuss about R.K. Narayan. He is very famous author. His full name is Rasipuram Krishnaswamy Narayan. Original name Rasipuram Krishnaswamy Narayan Swamy. Born on October 10th, 1906, Madras, Chennai. India and he died on May 13, 2001 in Madras. One of the finest Indian authors of his generation, writing in English, Narayan completed his education in 1930 and briefly worked as a teacher before deciding to devote himself to writing. His first novel, Swami and Friends, it was written in 1935, is an episodic narrative recounting the adventures of a group of schoolboys. That book and much of Narayan's later works are set in the fictitious South Indian town of Malgudi. Narayan typically portrays the peculiarities of human relationship and the ironies of Indian daily life, in which modern urban existence clashes with ancient tradition. His style is graceful, marked by genial humor, elegance, and simplicity. Among the best received of Narayan's 34 novels are The English Teacher, Waiting for the Mahatma, The Guide, The Man-Eater of Malgudi, The Vendor of Sweets, and A Tiger for Malgudi. Narayan also wrote a number of short stories collections including Laule Road, A Horse and Two Gods, and other stories, Under the Banyan Tree, and other stories, and The Grandmother's Tale. In addition to works of non-fiction, chiefly memoir, he also published shortened modern prose version of two Indian epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. In this story, the main character is an astrologer. This astrologer begins his work at midday in a public place under a large tree that is close to a public park in his town. The place chosen for his work is generally full of people who pass by or gather there, such as customers attracted by vendors of nuts, sweetmeats, and other snacks. As he begins his day's work, he spreads out his professional looking equipment. The place the astrologer works is poorly lighted at night. He depends on the other vendors' lights to work throughout the evening. The astrologer has his clients to sit down and share details of their lives with him. The clients speak for 10 minutes before the astrologer speaks. By this point, the astrologer has enough information to appear wise enough to tell fortunes. He effectively convinces them by giving the impression of a holy man whose special powers enable him to function as an astrologer. He has practical knowledge of the common problems of most people: marriage, money, and relations. Narayan consistently uses the fictional city of Malgudi, that this story too take place in Malgudi. In an event, one gets the impression of somewhat backward city which still remains a measure of its rural character. The reference to municipal lighting is one of the strategies employed by the author to suggest a sense of the place. In addition, the reference to other vendors who sell a variety of goods gives a sense of a bustling community in which the astrologer operates. The astrologer lays out all of his professional equipment, including ancient Syrian writing and enigmatic cloth charts. Many people mistake the piercing glare of his eyes for intelligence and the rare ability to tell the future. But really, he's just really good at looking for gullible customers. He also used makeup and a turban on his head to make himself appear more mystical and thus a quality source for prophecies. No one can really recognize him. The astrologer sells prophecies in a busy market with low quality facilities. The dingy lights, often powered by gas, cast a mysterious quality on the astrologer. The narrator notes that the astrologer cannot really tell the future, but he is good at reading people and telling them whatever it is they want to hear. In fact, it only takes him 5 minutes to deduce if the individual is having issues with love or money. He knows there are certain vague statements that will stroke to the ego of the individual. Is there a female who dislikes you? You are not being justly rewarded for your work. People find you intimidating, though you are kind on the inside. As this is a service, the narrator casts no judgment on the astrologer for what he does for a living. In the first part of the story, the daily activities of the astrologer are told without providing any real information about the astrologer. The narrator makes it very clear that the astrologer is a charlatan who knows nothing about the future but is a shrewd judge of character. The transition from a type to a sharply defined individual occurs when the astrologer is ready to leave for home and one last client stops in front of him. At that stage, omniscient narration gives way to dialogue and the astrologer and client become involved in a discussion. The astrologer treats this client like any other and begins with the same platitudes and comments he always uses, only to find that the client is unusually aggressive and mean-spirited. This client insists on his money worth and states that if astrologer does not tell the truth, he should not only return the money given to him but also give an additional sum for having lied. Realizing that he is likely to be exposed, the astrologer gets nervous and does his best to back out of the transaction. The client, on the other hand, is adamant and insists that a challenge is a challenge. The astrologer then has no choice except to agree to the terms. Just when the reader feels that the client has called the astrologer's bluff, the story takes on a new dimension. The astrologer begins by recounting the story of the client's past and describes how a long time ago he had been stabbed and thrown into a well and left for dead. It was the assistant of a passerby that saved him. The client, who is tremendously impressed by this revelation, is stunned when the astrologer addresses him by name, calls him Guru Nayak, and advises him to go back home and stop looking for the man who stabbed him since he had died in an accident. To further reinforce his point, the astrologer says that if Nayak leaves his village again, he is likely to face danger. The astrologer wants Nayak to never journey south of the village. If he does so, he will surely be killed. But if he goes home, which is 48-hour train ride north, then Nayak can live well into old age. Nayak says that will not be a problem. He only journeyed south to murder this individual. The only thing he regrets is that he could not have made the man's death more gruesome. Fortunately, the astrologer says he was crushed under a bus. It was in fact a terrifying death. Nayak is pleased by this news. The astrologer picks up his things and heads home. He is late and his wife is angry at his tardiness. But then he hands her the large bag of coins that he procured from Nayak. She is thrilled by the good fortune. After a nice dinner, the astrologer confesses to his wife that long ago, when he was a teenager, he was the one who pushed Nayak down the well and left him to die. The two had been gambling and drinking. They got into a huge fight at the end, and in a fit of rage, the astrologer stuck a knife into Nayak and threw him down into the well. But now that he knows Nayak did not die, the astrologer feels that he can sleep with a light heart now. So the narrator gives the backstory of the young astrologer, that he left his small village because he did not want to be an overworked farmer like all of his male ancestors. It is also hinted that he is running away from one of his misdeeds. To escape his fate, he travels by foot to a city more than 200 miles away. It is a very engrossing story by one of the famous Indian English writer, R.K. Narayan.